Dear student, this is the fourth lectures of the contemporary political thoughts. And here I am going to in detail about the theory of a state and revolutions, and also will talk about the dictatorships of the proletariats. First, I am going to giving the lectures on the theory of a state and revolutions. The theory of a states and revolutions is the most commonly associated with the work of the Vladimir Lenin, particularly his pamphlet The States and the Revolutions, written in the 1970. Lenin text outlined his theory of the state, particularly in the context of Marxist thoughts, and discuss the role of revolutions in the dismantling of the capitalist society to establish the socialisms. These are the important concept that is Marxist theory of a state. When we're talking about the Lenin's built on the Marxist idea that a state is a tool of class operations. According to Marx, the state served the interest of the ruling class bourgeois in the capitalist society by maintaining the existing class structures and suppressing the working class that is proletariat. Next key concept that is a state is an instrument of class rules. Lenin argued that a state could not be reformed to serve the interest of its proletariats. Instead, the capitalist state must be completed or dismantled to end the approaches of the working class. Third important key concept that is dictatorship of the proletariats, that is following Marx. Lenin advocate for a dictatorship of the proletariats where the working class sees the control of the state apparatus to suppress the bourgeois and prevent the returns of the capitalist. This phase is seen as necessary to transitions to a classless, a stateless society. Second important things that is withdrawal away of the state. Lenin invests that once the proletariat had established its dictatorship and capitalism has fully dismantled the state itself, would begin the wither away in the communist society. The state would become unnecessary because the class distinctions would be abolished and leading. That is the role of the revolutions. Lenin talking about the state emphasized the revolutionary overthrow of the capitalist state. He rejected the idea that socialism could be achieved through the gradual reforms and parliamentary methods, insisting that only a revolution could bring about the necessary changes. Theory of a state that is in the historical context. When we're talking about the state and revolutions was written during a turbulent period in the Russian history, shortly before in October revolutions and 1917, where Bolshevik led Lenin seized the powers, and Lenin idea on the state and revolutions were central to the Bolshevik strategy and subsequent establishment of a socialist state in the Russia. Lenin theory has had a profound influence on Marxist-Leninist movements worldwide. It provided the theoretical foundations for various communist, revolutionary, and establishment of a socialist state throughout the 20th century. However, the practical outcomes of these revolutions have been widely debated, with the critics focus on the authoritarian natures of some regimes and the deviations from the original visions of a stateless society. This theory remains a significant point of discussions in political theory, particularly in debates around the nature of the state and revolutions and the possibility of achieving the socialisms. Next thing that is called the dictatorship of the proletariat. The concept of dictatorship of the proletariat is the key elements in the Marxist theory, particularly as the articulated by the Karl Marx and on the by the Vladimir Lenin. It referred to a transitional stage in the which working class and the proletariats hold political power and uses the state apparatus to dismantle the existing capitalist system and move society towards communism. Key concept, transitional phases. The dictatorship of the proletariats is not the final goal, but a transitional phase between capitalism and communism. During this period, the working class is in control of the estate and aim is to suppress the resistance of the former ruling class and to dismantle the structures of capitalist exploitations. Class rules. Marx and Lenin describe all a state as a class dictatorship, meaning that any state is an instrument of one class rule over another's. Under the capitalisms, the state is a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie, even in the democracy. In contrast, the dictatorship of proletariats is envisaged as a state where working class wields power to dismantle capitalism and support any counter-revolutionary activity. So this is important parts of all the things. Next is that is called the dictatorship of the proletariats, that is democracy for the proletariats. Where it is called the dictatorship, this does not imply the lack of democracy. Instead, it implies the exclusion of the capitalist class from the political power. Lenin and Marx believed that this state would be more democratic than capitalist state because it would be represent the majority, the working class, rather than the minority or capitalist class. Suppressions of the bourgeois. A key function of the dictatorship of the proletariats is to suppress the bourgeois and they prevent them from regaining powers. This might include revolutionary violence, nationalizations of industry, redistributions of wealth, and recognitions of society along social lines, withering away of the states. In the long term, Marx and Lenin believed that a state itself would wither away if a class distinctions disappeared. One of the proletariats had successfully suppressed the bourgeois and established a classless society. The need for a state as a tool for class operations and would disappear, leading to a stateless communist society. Lenin interventions that Lenin further developed the concept in his writings, particularly in the State and Revolutions. He argued that the dictatorship of the proletariats was essential for a proletariat to consolidate the powers, defend the revolutions, and begin the constructions of socialism. For Lenin, the dictatorship of proletariats was not just a theoretical idea, but a practical necessary for the success of the revolutions. Criticisms and debate about these things. First important criticism, that is authoritarianism. Critics argue that concept of dictatorship of the proletariats can lead to a authoritarianism and totalitarianism. They point to the historical examples where Marxist Leninist regimes claim to be in the dictatorship of the proletariat phases, but establish highly centralized repressive states. Practical applications. The practical implementations of the dictatorship of the proletariat has varied gradually. In some instances, it led to the creations of one party state with the little is no political pluralisms, contrary to the original idea of more democratic society for the working class. And the end of the state, that is talking about the idea that a state would eventually wither away, has been widely debated, with many arguing that in practice a state often become more powerful and interact rather than evolving toward the statelessness. This is the important things. Now come to the historical impact. This historical impact, that is dictatorship of the proletariats, was a guiding principle for many 20th century socialist and communist movement, particularly in the Soviet Union and other socialist states. It has been both a point of inspiration and controversy, with its implementations often leading to significant debates about the nature of power, democracy, and state control in the socialist society. Next is we talking about the democratic centralizations. When we talking about the democratic centralizations, is a key organizations principles that used by the Leninist and Marxist political party, particularly the Communist Party. It was developed by Lenin and become a foundational aspect of the how a Bolshevik party and later other communist party were structured and operated. The principles aim is to balance democratic participations with centralized leadership and decision making. The key features of the democratic centralism is democracy in discussions within the party organization adhering to democratic centralizations. All members are encouraged to participate in open and frank discussions and debate about the policy and strategy. This phase is where democratic elements come into the play, other allowing members to the voices and their opinions, process idea, and engage in collective decision making. Next is that is talking about the centralism in decision making. Once a decision is made, usually by majority votes, all members are expected to uphold and implement the decisions in a united manner. This means that even those who may have opposed the decision during the debates are required to support it fully once it is adopted. This aspect is the centralism's part, emphasizing unity and disciplines in carrying out the agreed upon decisions. Next, about the democratic decentralizations, that is hierarchy and disciplines. Democratic centralism establishes a clear hierarchy within the party where lower body are subordinated to the higher body and decision made by the higher body must be implemented by the lower ones. This hierarchical structure is designated to ensure that the party can act decisively and cohesively. Freedom of discussions, unity in actions, a key slogans often associated with the democratic centralism is freedoms of discussions, unity in actions. This highlighted the principles that internal debate is a healthy and necessary. What once a decision is made, the party must act as one. Lenin interpretations, Lenin introduced and advocates for the democratic centralisms as a way to maintain the effectiveness and disciplines of the Revolutionary Party, especially in the face of external threats and need for decisions, actions. He believed that working class need a dignity organized party capable of leading successful revolutions and democratic centralisms provided the framework for achieving this. This is very important part. Next of the democratic centralism, that is applications in the communist parties, that is Bolshevik party. Principles of democratic centralism was first fully applied within the Bolshevik party, particularly during the Russian revolutions and subsequent civil war. It was seen as essential for maintaining unity and discussion during these turbulent times. Soviet Union and other communist states, democratic centralism became a core principles in the governance of the Soviet Union and other socialist states. This communist party in this country were often organized around these principles, which shape their internal functions and decision-making process. Criticisms and the challenges over the time, democratic centralism has faced criticism for its potentials to lead the authoritarianisms, and critics argue that it can stifle genuine debate and dissent in as emphasis on unity and discipline. Many supporters' minority opinions lead to a concentration of power in the hands of a small leadership group. In practice, this has sometimes resulted in the centralization of powers and marginals of democratic process within the party. Next important thing, that is talking about the debate and evolutions, balance between democracy and centralism. This is very important part. The tensions between the democracy and centralization aspects of these principles has been a subject of the debate within the communist and socialist movement. Some argue that too much centralism undermines the democratic aspects, while others believe that a strong centralism is necessary for the effective leadership, especially in times of crisis. Adaptations in different contexts, different communist party and movements have adopted the principles of democratic centralism in various ways, sometimes placing more emphasis on the one aspect over the other, depending upon the specific political and social context. Next important thing, that is legacy. This is very important. Democratic centralism remain a foundational concept in many Marxist-Leninist organizations today. It continue to influence how these organizational structures themselves and make decisions, although the practical applications of the principles varies widely. The principles impact on the both the success and failure of socialist movement is a significant point of analysis in political theory and the history. Next important thing that is democratic centralizations that is talking about the theory of imperialisms. This refers to the various Marxist interpretations that explanations the relationship between the capitalisms and imperialisms, particularly how advanced capitalist countries expand their economics and political control over the less developed regions. The most influential formations of this theory is often attributed to the Vladimir Lenin, how other Marxist thinkers like the Rosa Luxemburg, John Hobson, and also made significant contributions. These theory focus on how economic focus drive imperialist policy and the effects of imperialisms on global capitalism. Key components of Lenin's theory of imperialisms. Lenin's most notable work on the subject is imperialisms, the highest stage of capitalism. Imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism, where analyze imperialism has a specific phase of capitalism. According to Lenin, imperialism is not just a policy or a strategy, but a stage in the development of capitalist economy. Monopoly capitalism. Lenin argued that by the late 19th, early 20th century, capitalism had evolved a form of free competitions to monopoly capitalism. Large corporations and banks began to dominate entire sectors of the economy, leading to the concentrations of capitals and the formations of monopoly. These monopolies sought to be control markets and resources beyond their national borders. Next important thing that is the export of the capitals. One of the definitions features of imperialism according to the Lenin in the exports of the capitals. As capitalist economies matured, the domestic market became structured and the cause of profits began to declines to maintain profitability, and capitalists sought to new markets and investments of opportunity abroad, leading to the export of capital investments in foreign country rather than just goods. These are the important things. Now come to the other important things that is called divisions of the world among the capitalist power. When we're talking about the divisions, that is imperialism involved the division of the world among the major capitalist power who compete for the control over the territory, markets, and resources. Competitions often lead to the conflicts and barriers between the imperialist nations seen in the World War I, which Lenin emphasized as a direct result of imperialist rivalry. Colonialism and economics exploitations. Lenin theory highlight the role of colonialism as a tools of imperialism. Colonialism's territory seen as a crucial for providing the raw materials, cheap labors, and new market for the goods and capitals of the imperialist country. These exploitations deepen globally inequality and enter the dominance of the capitalist power over the rest of the world. Imperialism as the decay of capitalism. Lenin considered imperialism to be the highest and final stage of capitalism, characterized by the most exploitative and parasitic form. He believed that imperialism markets the beginning of the decay and decline of capitalism as it exploded contributions within the system, leading to increased social tensions and the possibility of revolutions. Next important thing that is the theory of the imperialisms that is talking about by the Rosa Luxemburg. In her work, The Accumulations of Capitals, Rosa Luxemburg argued that imperialism was necessary for capitalism because it allowed for realizations of surplus value. She claimed that capitalism needed to constantly expand into the non-capitalist regions to survive, as these regions provided the markets and necessary for the capitalist accumulations. John Hobson in his work Imperialism, a study in the 1902 provided a non-Marxist critics of imperialism. Hobson argued that imperialism was driven by the interest of financial elite who sought to find profitable investment abroad due to the overaccumulations of capitals at homes. This is the suggested that the concentrations of wealth within the capitalist society that under consumptions that imperialism was a way to address this imbalance by the finance finding new market. Next is Trotsky and permanent revolutions. Leon Trotsky extended the analysis of implementing by linking it to this theory of permanent revolutions. Trotsky argued that imperialism expanded the inequality between the advanced and understood country, makings socialist revolutions more urgent and possible in less developed nations, which would be the run inspired by the revolutions in the imperialist country. This is the last uh, PPT that is talking about the influence and legacy. Global South and anti-colonial movements. Lenin theory of imperialism lead to a significant impact on the anti-colonials and revolutionary movement in the global South. It proved to be a framework for understanding colonialisms and imperialisms as the extensions of the capitalist exploitations, which resound with the leaders and activity fighting for independence and social justice. Next is that is criticisms and debates. Lenin theory of imperialism has been the both influential and controversial. Some argue critics that it is the oversimplifications about the complexity of the global economic relations and underestimations the role of non-economic factors in the implementations. Others have been adopted and expanded the Lenin idea to analyze the contemporary forms of the imperialism, such as economic globalizations and neo-imperialisms. Contemporary relevance, the theory of imperialisms continue to be relevant in discussions about the global inequality, the role of multinational corporations, and economic dominance of developed economy over the developing world. It also informs critics of the modern day imperialisms where economic power is badly through institutions like the International Monetary Funds, the World Bank, and through the actions of the global superpowers. Lenin theory of imperialism remains a cornerstone of the Marxist analysis of global capitalism, offering insight into the economic and political dynamics that drive the imperialist expansions and effects both on the global south and the capitalist pool. So these are the important lectures that is on the influences and the legacy. Thank you. Thank you for hearing the lectures.